From the Beatles to Frank Ocean, drugs have been referenced by musical artists in their lyrics for decades. History can present countless examples of musicians around the world using drugs as an inspiration to enhance creativity in their music. The Beatles' 1966 album Revolver walks the listener through a personal story of members John Lennon and George Harrison on a night full of LSD-spiked coffee, leading to both the members strolling the streets of London, imagining every building on fire. This eventually led to the Beatles' 12th best-selling song of all time, Yellow Submarine. In an interview about Revolver, McCartney said, "LSD's effects started to find its way into everything we did, really. It colored our perceptions." Soon after the Beatles created the gateway for artists to speak comfortably about their experiences with drugs, others followed suit. Another example of this was Jefferson Airplane's 1967 song White Rabbit, which sparked the audience with vivid illusions heavily influenced by LSD. Some say this was an invitation for young people to experiment with drugs themselves. Singer of Jefferson Airplane, Grace Slick, did not intend for young listeners to be encouraged to do drugs, but was rather intended towards parents who condemned their children for doing drugs like LSD and marijuana, while they were using drugs of their own like Valium, caffeine, alcohol, and other prescription drugs. They also seemed so unaware that many books they read to us as kids had drug use as a subtext, Slick said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. Frank Ocean is a really good example of a recent artist that uses drugs as an inspiration towards his music. He shows an example of emotional and intimate stories of love and drugs in his 2012 song Crack Rock. In this song, he paints a picture of how crack addiction can lead to fiendish behaviors that result in the loss of family and friends. During an interview with Oyster magazine, Ocean explains that he was a thug. "I sold a lot of cocaine and crack." By the 80s, punk rock became one of the most listened to music genres of the decade and gave us the loud, aggressive, fast subculture of straight-edge music. Bands like Fear, 7 Seconds, and Bad Brains believe that the true revolution of punk relied heavily in not using drugs or drinking alcohol. The straight-edge movement originated as a response to the indulgent qualities of the punk era. One of the most famous straight-edge bands of this time was Minor Threat. Lead singer Ian MacKaye claimed that being straight or drug-free gave one advantage, an edge on life. Straight edgers appeared in different music scenes and has been even referenced by current straight-edge hip-hop artists, Tyler the Creator, in songs like Colossus, "I'm straight edge too, so no drugs on this trip," and even Long Beach rapper Vince Staples came out as sober by saying, "The drug usage was the last thing on my mind. When you're surrounded with death and dismay and poverty and all these things that happen every day, I didn't have time to worry about the using or partaking in certain things." Artists that commonly mention the use of illegal drugs in their music do not intend to interest young listeners, but rather intend to tell a story on their past with drugs and how it changed their music today. Artists like the Beatles and Jefferson Airplane are so famously known for their songs about drugs simply because society was not used to illicit drugs being referred to so casually. But in time, we can see how artists and listeners today have adapted to the norms of our changing society and have realized that yes, in small cases, it can inspire the young generation to do drugs, but overall, drug use is in every corner and music is simply an outlet for people to express this through sound.